This is a dream scenario for the San Antonio Spurs as Brian Wright's ready to make some moves this offseason, and with the Grizzlies' future being in question, not just with their head coach being gone and Taylor Jenkins unavailable, also one of their top shooters heading to the market, the Spurs have a dream chance. We also got to dive into Jeremy Sochan's comments on the pretty brutal end of the season. There's a lot we got to talk about coming up on this episode of Spurs Digest. It's getting exciting, but guys, before we get into it, I want to remind you that the majority of you still aren't subscribed to the channel, and hey, if you enjoy the Spurs content we got coming all off season long, hit the free button down below. We're pushing for 7,500. I hope you can help us get there, but let's dive first into Jeremy Sochan. And look, this season we know it wasn't ideal by any means. Of course, Gregg Popovich going down with the medical issues, which is still so heartbreaking. Of course, Victor Wembanyama having the blood clot, De'Aaron Fox having that surgery, which is probably good in the long run for him, but it wasn't a dream end of the season. But Jeremy Sochan was asked a bit about it, and I had some quotes that I wanted to share with you guys because I thought they were interesting. Let's bring it up full screen. He was basically saying how in his 3 years in San Antonio, this was the season that felt like they were at home the least. He said the Paris trip was like a week long. We were in New York for a week over Christmas. We were in LA during the wildfires. It wasn't the easiest situation that we were put in, but I think you learn from those situations and grow as a team and as individuals. I think we're going to benefit from all of it. And honestly, I love that attitude from Jeremy Sochan. Now, he did kind of have to reel himself in at one point saying like, look, he wanted to say, it wasn't a great season. If you don't make the play-in or the playoffs, it's not a wonderful season. But regardless, the Spurs were in that hunt for the play-in for a lot of the season. And like Jeremy said, like we know, like he talked a bit about, again, Gregg Popovich, Victor Wembanyama, that kind of stuff. And obviously that takes a toll on you. But not only were those outside factors taking a toll on you, the schedule was brutal. Of course, every year we got the rodeo road trip in LA for the wildfires, Christmas in New York, the Paris trip. He's right. The Spurs didn't feel at home for a lot of this season. And it's tumultuous. Roster turnover, getting De'Aaron Fox while trading some guys out. It's tough. But the big thing I liked to hear from Jeremy Sochan as well is he said, you know what though? It's super exciting. I think everyone is super motivated and ready to keep growing and keep meshing as a team and as an identity in the culture. Super excited. And that's that Spurs culture. I mean, not to steal Miami Heat's thing, the Heat culture. We're not going to stoop to that, but the Spurs culture is a real thing, right? And even LeBron recently, when talking to Steve Nash, he was even saying, like, when you faced a Gregg Popovich team, you knew you had to be perfect because those teams didn't beat themselves. And that is something that hopefully is going to continue with these Spurs over the next few years. And look, Sochan, there's a lot of talk of him, like, needing the extension, whether it be this offseason or maybe partway into next season. He's even been in some trade rumors, whether we're talking about Kevin Durant or whoever it is, right? His name is in the media quite a lot. And, looking at his stats, it's like, even the Giannis stuff as well, don't forget that, right? But, like, his stats, again, like, this season when he was with Wemby, especially early in the season, I thought he was great. And, look, this is not just going to be, this is what Jeremy Sochan is. It should be more about the team. But I just wanted to point out how valuable he is, and you guys as well, when I think it was me or Keenan spoke about him in a recent video. The love for Jeremy Sochan was simply like, look, he gives so much to this team defensively. He's just amazing to have around. So, we were talking about Cam Johnson trades and all this kind of stuff too. So I think that was the video I talked about it in. But yeah, like, let me know what you think about his comments and this season as a whole. And honestly, his quote to end it all off is just so amazing to me. Like, this is what I love about this Spurs team. Everyone seems to be in it for each other. Next man up mentality. You're ready to go for your other guys. And heading into next season with De'Aaron Fox coming back fully healthy, Wemby coming back fully healthy, Sochan ready to go, Vassell coming back fully healthy next year because he wasn't 100% this year. There's a lot of great stuff coming, but of course, there's a decision on the coaching staff, stuff like that too. So I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. But speaking of some of this roster turnover, the coaching stuff, I sort of teased in the intro. I'm not really going to dive too much into that on the Taylor Jenkins front because I think we still don't really know, and we won't know for a while. But what I will say is the Memphis Grizzlies, there's a bit of turmoil there right now, and there's a lot of talk going on about what's going to happen with that team. And of course, they just lost to the hands of the Oklahoma City Thunder, now like the best team in the NBA to be fair, and they kind of crushed them. In the first game, 51-point win, crazy. Slowly went down to 19 points and then 6 points and only 2 points in the last game. But look, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander absolutely, I don't want to say carried because that whole team was unbelievable, but yeah. They destroyed the Grizzlies, which raises a lot of questions about their future. And looking at the roster, John Morant, of course, wasn't available for Game 4. Marvin Bagley played only 2 games, didn't play that much, averaged 8.5 points. But, like, Scottie Pippen Jr. was your top scorer in terms of total points in that series, and even tied for top on points per game. Jaren Jackson Jr. was trying to rally the troops, but some other guys like Vince Williams just didn't seem to be into it, right? There's some questionable stuff going on with the Memphis Grizzlies right now, and with this loss, this sweep at the hands of the Thunder, look, no one expected them to beat the Thunder, but I thought we maybe thought it'd be a bit more competitive. Questions are arising about everything in the Memphis Grizzlies locker room. And there was an article from Air Alamo, credit to Jaleel Williams. I love reading some of these Air Alamo stuff. Shout out to Jaleel. Go check the article down below in the description to read the whole piece. But this inspired me to take a look because he said Grizzly collapse opened doors for Spurs to make sneaky perfect signing. And I think this is kind of right? And there's one guy on the Grizzlies that I wanted to talk about here. And his name, no, it's not Jeremy Sochan. It's Luke Kennard. And Luke Kennard, you look at him and you're like, okay, well, what we know about Luke Kennard is he's a great shooter and he doesn't play defense. Yep, quite literally, I think one of, if not the worst perimeter defender in the league multiple times. And we do have some shooters that already fill some roles, like Julian Champagnie, of course. He's solid 3 and like a little bit of D, right? Like he's just a solid bench player in general to fill that role. The thing with Luke Kennard, though, is he is legitimately one of the best shooters in the world. And when I say one of the best, like, I mean it. I mean, you look at his stats. He led the NBA in three-point percentage back-to-back years in 21-22 and 22-23 with 45% and then 49% on 4.6 attempts a game over 2 teams as well, switching offensive systems. In those 24 games with Memphis in 22-23, he shot 54% from 3 on 5.7 attempts per game. Why am I highlighting all this with Luke Kennard? Well, it's because he signed that 1-year deal to go back with Memphis because he wanted to be with Memphis. And it was a 1-year, $10 million deal or 9.25, something like that. It was between $9 and $10 million for 1 year to go back to Memphis. But if they're looking to blow things up, which I'm not sure if they are or not, but like regardless, the team's in turmoil and you got to wonder if he's really going to want to go back there because his numbers this year, you can see they've dipped. I mean, it's his lowest point per game total over a full season since 2020-2021, where he only played 63 games with the LA Clippers, where he only averaged 19.6 minutes per game. And when you look at the Spurs right now, and we look at what we have moving forward, adding a great shooter to the bench, because that's where Luke Kennard he wouldn't start. Adding not even just a great shooter, like a top tier shooter off the bench, I think would open up a lot. And, you guys know, like, having Victor Wembanyama will create open shots for other people. De'Aaron Fox driving kick game, it'll create shots for other people. But when we look at the bench, and Jaleel mentioned this in the article as well, and a shout out to Mr. Williams, but when you look at the Spurs bench guys, I mean, depending on if we make a trade this offseason, I know Vassell's name's thrown out there, Keldon Johnson's name is the one that's in every single mock trade, right? But if you have a guy like Keldon Johnson coming off the bench, and whoever else you have, whether it's Castle if he's off the bench or starting, you got a few guys that maybe aren't like the best at shooting threes. Having a guy like Luke Kennard who can come off the bench for a guy like Devin Vassell or for a guy like Castle, or even play with Castle and Keldon Johnson in certain lineups, is great because it offers more spacing. A guy like Keldon, we know he can hit the 3. Castle, we know he can hit the 3. Vassell as well has been quite a good shooter, but adding a legit elite shooter to counterbalance some of these guys who are better at the slashing game. And again, it doesn't just extend to the bench. It's like you look at this list here. Fox, a great slasher. Vassell can absolutely shoot, but he works well in the mid-range, and he's solid at getting to the rim as well. Keldon Johnson, again, he can shoot, but he's more consistent at getting to the rim. Harrison Barnes, a good shooter, of course. Castle, we know, better slasher. Sochan, again, doesn't bring a ton of spacing. He's starting to improve, but what I'm saying is this could unlock the Spurs, and I know there's the draft coming up soon, and there's a lot of people talking about Concanupple who could fill a similar role, though a similar role overall to a guy like Luke Kennard, and the Spurs could pick whoever they want, really, in the draft to fill this role, instead of going out and doling out what's probably going to cost them. I mean, I don't even know how much Luke Kennard had signed for. It'd depend if it was 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever you'd want. You probably wouldn't want to go any more than 2 years on a guy like Kennard, where, like, as his foot speed slows down, he will legit become a liability defensively if he isn't already. But bringing in a guy like this, it might be better for you when you have your payroll to look at these guys and say, okay, we'd rather keep our cap flexibility by bringing in a rookie scale contract. But at the same time, who really knows, right? Luke Kennard, I think, is actually a really good fit. And like, this is kind of a dream scenario again, like with the Grizzlies going down, and there's some other teams in the West where, even in the East, where their futures are questionable. I think there's going to be some players available. And I mean, Kennard's a UFA regardless. Like, it's not like Memphis would have to trade him to the Spurs, but it just means that it's less likely for him to go back there. So stuff going on there in Memphis. And again, the Taylor Jenkins thing, if Gregg Popovich doesn't come back, looking for a new coach, he could be one of those guys. Talking Mike Malone too, a lot of guys like that. But keeping our eyes open is very important. And when you see guys like this, it's not always the big signings that put you over the top. Okay, well, It often is. Let's be honest with ourselves. But the Spurs have those like superstars already in Fox and Wemby and some guys still developing like a Stephon Castle. Adding those glue pieces, the guys to fill those holes in your lineup, are a lot of those guys that can actually just put you that little bit higher, that can push you into that championship tier. So I'm actually quite excited by this proposal. And maybe you guys are, maybe you guys aren't. And I'd love to hear from you down below. Am I crazy for thinking that this makes a ton of sense? Would you want them or no? The defense is a head scratcher for sure, but I think the Spurs have some guys to make up for those deficiencies. But let me know what you think down below, because that'll do it for this episode of Spurs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date every single day on the latest San Antonio Spurs news. I've been your host, Josh Gosse, and I'll catch you in the next one.